who was my high school friend,
Okay.
Bud. And he, and so he died about 2.5 years ago. He's a painter in Houston. He died of cancer, and I've just been thinking about him a lot
Okay.
over the last couple of years. And so this is an old poem. It's from my first book I put out when I was 40, called Text and Commentary, My First 9 Lives. And this is a poem I wrote in my 20s when we were hanging out together.
Okay.
And it's just titled The Dying Leaves. My friend wants to cut them off, but I believe that nature can decide to drop these yellow leaves when plant and leaf will amiably part. As in drawings, I like dark and light to alternate. I like lingering lines that fade where line and page are one. My friend likes dark lines that define. I want a leisurely look at life. He thinks life is work and must be paid for every day. I will die of long disease, my friend of heart attack. And it was my first published poem in a thing at UT.
Wow.
First, yeah. So anyway.
It's amazing how those high school relationships can carry through
Yeah.
for so long.
Yeah.
I've been attempting to write a poem about a friend I lost in high school, and I just feel like I can't do it justice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's tricky. It's hard.
I'd rather write about people while they're still living.
Yeah.
So read us something else now.
Sure.
Since
I'm going to read
something
another.
newer. Or?
I'm going to read another poem about my friend Neil.
Okay.
That takes me into college. And it's one that I wrote with longer lines and such a. But he became involved with a group of kind of fundamentalist Christians in Austin. I went off to grad school at Texas A&M. We both went to the University of Texas, lived together, and were roommates. I went to grad school. He stayed here and worked on his painting, but became involved with the church.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was finished with grad school, I moved back to Austin. And they had a restaurant that they had created for homeless people down on 6th Street. And this was when 6th Street was in that transition from being blues bars to drunken UT thing, right? There was a period in 1977, 78, 79. Then they moved to Houston. The minister's wife had a job at ACC at my college, and she left and recommended me to be a tutor at ACC. And then I became a tutor at ACC, and now, 35 years later, I'm still there. So this is called the Upper Room. Imagine their dismay when office workers and bureaucrats began showing for lunch. This was the place their prayers and savings accounts had bought them. A small, clean, bright kitchen beneath the highway, near the homeless shelters, above the gay bar, beside the gallery of angry ethnic art. They imagined word would spread among the city's nomads. A good, cheap sandwich, thick, rich soup, a slice of pie, the kind that Grandma made for Sunday's family meal. If you couldn't pay, they had faith that God would provide. Meanwhile, what could they get you? Do you know Jesus? Bill staggered in, stinking of wine, asking for paper dollars. They set him down with a hot roast beef and a few lines from Revelation. Once he returned, got the smoked turkey, accepted Timothy with apple pie, but they never saw him again. That's the way it went for a while. Molly with her 2 kids, long blonde hair like knotted yarn, green stumps for teeth. She had kicked it, she said, kicked it and wouldn't start again. She stopped in 3 days straight. Molly wept tears the size of pills every time they prayed with her. Then she disappeared. Benito from Oaxaca had lost his job processing chickens and guineas and was looking for anything. He got the vegetable beef soup, warm white bread, and coffee. After he left, they couldn't find the pecan pie they had baked that morning. They wished him well, hoped that he would share. Then slowly, inevitable as winter, secretaries in sensible shoes, state librarians, blouses buttoned to the neck filled the place. Nancy, whose mother was in chemo, appreciated the smiles. No, she didn't want to talk about John 14, but could she get a slice of cherry to go? Mother loves your pie with milk. Sharon's boyfriend was on drugs. Larry was getting laid off. Thanks for listening, both said. No, they didn't like to go to church. They didn't know what to do with Erica. You're good people, she said, taking recipes for split pea soup. I want my girlfriend, Angel, to meet you. She'll inhale your chicken and rice. Wednesday nights they wrestled with Acts. On Sundays they sang How Great Thou Art and preached from Job. They could not fathom why God's bright eyes had turned dark, why their fierce seeds fell on such poor soil. Soon they planned to move away. That summer I lived out back in an upper room, a wandering son afraid to return home once more in need. I had degrees but no direction, heard a call but could not speak. Bussing tables 3 days a week, I paid the rent and rode their generosity to the end of the line and back again. Before she left 26 years ago, Marisa landed me her job at the college among the Philistines and sinners. In my office on the second floor, through each of God's seasons, I now listen to my students' tales, their confessions and their lies. Jamie's father suffers gallstones. Leslie's boss won't let her off to take a test. LaShonda doesn't know what to say on Essay 3. I listen, and if I have something to suggest, a book or poem, I offer it like a family recipe. I've known people who loved it, some who haven't. If you don't, come back. I'll be here still.
I like that. I love the way you read it.
Thank you.
Such a nice voice for reading. I think you need that as a poet if you're going to perform your work. Really, you almost have to have that. So
There's so many things that have become that really help.
Right.
There are poets who are such great performers of their work. I'm really jealous of them and emulate them.
Now, I would like to hear you read some of the more recent work. I'm curious to see something out of this book because I've not seen this one before.
This
And
one
is it an ekphrastic poetry book?
It is. It's my friend Neil learned he had cancer, and then he decided not to take treatment.
Okay.
Right. I mean, it was already stage 4, but he decided what he wanted to do was to paint. He knew that if he did chemo and took drugs and stuff like that, he wouldn't be able to. So he did take pills for pain, but otherwise he says, I'm going to paint till the end. And basically he painted up until maybe the 3rd day before he died, and got 25 paintings. We just showed them at ACC. And his wife, who was a designer in Houston, she and I put together this book.
Okay.
What I did was I went and sat with his paintings in a room a couple of times, 2 or 3 times. She sent me a file with all the paintings, in PDF form, and I just wrote, and it came out very, very different from anything that I've ever
And I
done
have
before.
seen this now that you're flipping through it because it was on one of those channels on the computer, YouTube. Or,
Yeah.
It was on a YouTube video that you.
And
sent
that's
me the
another
link
thing
to.
I did, just kind of experimenting with form. I did that video of like all the paintings, and then I read over it, and I actually created some sound. I won't call it music. Put some sound behind it, and so I'll just read the first couple of pages.
That would be great.
It's very different from anything I've written, and it was interesting. We did a reading of this when we closed the show. One of his friends from Houston came and gave me a poem that Neil had written, and his poem was very similar to these poems. So I almost feel like Neil talked to me, while I was doing it, while I was doing this.
Art
So,
always has something to say,
Yeah.
and some people hear it a little differently, but usually there's a universal message behind it. And I mean, I felt like the words and the painting went
together.
so closely together. So yes, please.
So this is, I can just show you sort of what his poems, or what his paintings look like. They're very abstract. And so how do you write an ekphrastic poem about abstract paintings? That was the first challenge. So I just sat and thought and listened to what came to my head. And this is just the few first pages here. You were looking for strength. God had something else in mind, dissolving, like sipping tea, sugar-viced, thumb-smudged sweetness. Everything you desire disintegrates. Moss and wine cups, sky water. He hears your cries, beckons them, winds stirred from hidden sources, hopes and miseries scooped away like dust, wind-borne, beaten from prayer rugs. The interruption, window thump, beak, dream-catching, feathers, crumpling, collapsing, descending, all. Open, so much brilliance wishes to return. Don't make it wait until your flesh wrinkles, dries. Joy lays siege to your pretenderness. Where is the gate where angels enter? So sort of a meditation.
It is. Together is really a beautiful thing to either watch on YouTube or I love flipping through the book. I like holding books in my hands.